Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. And it's Wednesday, which means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue, on his channel, will talk about that same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team-up that we do once a week. And our comic book subject this week is The Flash, the fastest man alive, and one of the greatest characters ever to come from DC Comics. The Flash! He's completely awesome, and his comic book is great, and has been for years and years. I have to say this up front, because there's another host of Epic Comic Book Wednesdays who doesn't think The Flash is all that. In fact, he thinks The Flash is lame, because he thinks his power set is lame. All he can do is run fast, says this host who shall remain nameless. Well, I'm here to tell you that the Flash is completely awesome, and his power set is great. Sure, he can run fast. He's the fastest man alive. And he can also vibrate through walls. And he can create lightning bolts and do all kinds of cool stuff. And he has one of the greatest rogues galleries to fight that any superhero has ever had. He's the Flash. So, the Flash began his career as a Golden Age hero. That's right, a Golden Age hero, and these old-timey Golden Age comics were written by legendary comic book writer Gardner Fox, one of the most prolific comic book writers of all time. That's the original Golden Age Flash. And here you have the original Golden Age Flash story. Now, you can't read a whole bunch of these because DC Comics are a bunch of, well, idiots when it comes to their reprint program. They should have like 7 or 8 Golden Age Flash Omnibuses out by now. But they don't because they suck with their reprint program. Oh well, I guess we'll settle for like the 2 or 3 that we could find and read. Anyway, the Golden Age Flash was a pretty great character. But he did not last past the Golden Age of comics. So in the Silver Age, well, before the Silver Age, superheroes had disappeared, all but disappeared. Only a few remained. At DC Comics, all you had was Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and that was it. There was not much else going on at old DC Comics. But then Julius Schwartz got a great idea. Let's bring back the Flash, only we'll reinvent him. So, Julius Schwartz and John Broome reinvented the Flash, and they got Carmine Infantino to draw it, and then in Showcase number 4, the brand new Flash arrived, and along with the Flash, the Silver Age of Comics, because it was this character that brought the Silver Age of Comics. Without this guy, we wouldn't have all the superheroes that we do. That's right, the Flash is pretty darn important. And he was extraordinarily popular. Why? Because he's awesome. And the comics were damn good. These were some of the greatest Silver Age comics you'll ever read. In fact, for me, The Flash is the ultimate Silver Age comic book. From DC, anyway. And this initial issue, which brought the new Flash, Barry Allen, police scientist Barry Allen, crime scene investigator Barry Allen, who is always on the scene of the crime, and so he can get the inside scoop on all the new supervillains who were poking around. And boy, were there a lot of them. So this is the initial origin issue of the new Flash, Barry Allen, and this showed up in 1956. Comic books would never be the same after this awesome issue. And this is actually a pretty great comic book. So here we have his origin. Lightning strikes Barry Allen when he's by his chemicals in his laboratory, splashing him with both lightning and chemicals. Does this kill him or make him ill? No, it makes him super fast. In fact, in one of the greatest scenes of all Silver Age comics, we have this extraordinary moment when Barry Allen is sitting about to have dinner and a clumsy waitress dumps all this food on him and everything seems to go in slow motion. Look how surprised he is. You would be too if all your food was falling on you in slow motion. In fact, he's so fast now, he grabs it and he sets it all down. What a great sequence. It was awesome. And the rest of this comic book is just as awesome. In fact, he's reading the old issues of the original Flash, which gives him the idea to become the new Flash. He made an outfit that fits inside a ring. It fits inside, it's terribly realistic, just like everything else in all these Golden Age comics. It might have not been realistic, but it was pretty awesome. And so here we have the Flash. He's so fast he runs up the sides of buildings. He's incredible. And this was a great comic book, man. Everybody loved the Flash. Everybody, especially when Gorilla Grodd showed up. You know, the Flash had some of the greatest supervillains to ever show up. The Mirror Master, the Weather Wizard, Captain Cold, and my personal favorite, Gorilla Grodd, the Gorilla Genius. Yes, he's a Gorilla Genius. From Gorilla City. You know, they're not all bad in Gorilla City, but, you know, every city has to have a genius super criminal. And Gorilla Grodd is that criminal. Has to go fight the Silver Age Flash. And he was awesome. Everybody loved Gorilla Grodd. Everybody except for a certain other host of Epic Comic Book Wednesdays. Gorilla Grodd was awesome. Look, there he is now. You know, the Flash was awesome. So, the Flash had spectacular adventures in the Silver Age of comics. And like I said, I kind of think that his adventures in the Silver Age are some of the greatest adventures you'll ever find in the Silver Age of comics. Fortunately, they collected a lot of these adventures, in fact, all of the Silver Age adventures in a bunch of omnibuses. Yes, there was a time when DC sort of knew what it was doing. And remarkably, we got the complete Silver Age of the Flash in omnibus form. I mean, they won't do that for Superman. I mean, Superman's only their greatest character. Let's not put him in omnibus form for the Silver Age. No, let's wait till Michael is dead. Anyway, enough of that tangent. Back to the Flash. So, this is the first Silver Age omnibus of the Flash. This is the original cover because this is the first printing. And it is great, man. It has all of the Silver Age adventures of the Flash in these omnibuses volumes. It's got the covers. And eventually, I'm not sure I'll find Kid Flash, but Kid Flash is in here somewhere. Where are you, Kid Flash? Anyway, he had a little sidekick, Wally West, who was Kid Flash. So the Flash had his own sidekick. So that was the first volume, the first omnibus, but they did continue it with the second volume of the Silver Age Flash. It's just as awesome. We still have Carmine Infantino doing the art. And I have to say, I think his artwork was the best on the Flash. Look, we've got, you know, the great supervillains in this one. We've got, who is this guy? Mr. Element. Mr. Element is here. Yeah, Mr. Element. And the Reverse Flash. We got him too, you know. Got to have that guy. He's evil. Evil. He's like the complete opposite of the Flash. The bad Flash. He's awesome. Anyway, here's Wally West. He shows up. Originally, he just had a costume that made him just look like a little Flash. But eventually, he got his own costume. And Wally West had a bunch of cool adventures with the Flash. And also, I forgot to mention that the original Flash, Jay Garrick, arrived. And as you can see on this cover here, Jay Garrick and the Flash and Kid Flash all hung out together and had adventures. It was awesome. This is a great comic book. Look, there's Gorilla Grodd again. So this was the third and final Silver Age omnibus. We don't have any Bronze Age omnibuses because DC are a bunch of idiots. So we don't have any of those. Now, Then tragedy struck. Tragedy struck our beloved Flash. Tragedy struck with this ridiculous thing. This is Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now in Crisis, a bunch of crazy stuff happened. All the multiverse was all squished up into one Earth for no good reason. And the Flash heroically met his doom. Barry Allen died. And remarkably, for a superhero, he stayed dead for like years and years and years. We didn't think we'd ever get Barry Allen back. And you know what? A lot of us didn't even care, because this is actually when I started reading The Flash, was after this nightmare. Which, when I was younger, I thought must have been kind of cool, because it got me into reading all these DC comic books just like it was, supposed to do. But the thing is, Barry Allen, the Flash, was dead. The Barry Allen Flash was killed. But then a really interesting thing happened. The sidekick, Wally West, became the new Flash. We finally had a kid sidekick take on the mantle of the former superhero. So here we had Kid Flash, Wally West, become the new Flash, which was really interesting because Wally West was actually kind of a great character. He hasn't been treated too well in recent years, but then what DC Comics character has been? But yeah, Wally West became the Flash, and that's actually when I started reading The Flash. The stories were pretty darn good. The artwork was a little in the beginning. One thing about the Flash comic book is the Flash is almost always worth reading if you're a Flash fan, if you like this character. The Flash is remarkably consistent as far as quality is concerned. Usually, no matter what time you go to in your time machine, not that I have a time machine, but no matter what time you go to in the past, the Flash is actually usually pretty good. I mean, up until, certain specific years that usually had something to do with, some big event that was going on. But usually the Flash is pretty darn good. And that was the same with when Wally West became the Flash. Those comics were actually pretty interesting. And they drew me in. And I became a Flash fan when Wally West was the Flash. And I really became a Flash fan, an extra Flash fan, when Mark Waid took over. So this is The Flash by Mark Waid Omnibus. Mark Waid took over The Flash, and we have some reminiscences there of when he was Kid Flash. He wrote some just great, tremendous adventures of The Flash, Mark Waid. Mark Waid, one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. His version of The Flash is a highlight. And he created the Speed Force, which has been used so much since then in both the comic book and that television show, which I haven't mentioned yet. The television show, I watched the first few seasons of that television show. It was occasionally decent and usually suffered from the same thing that all of the CW superhero shows suffered from: being repetitive, frequently being ridiculous. Let's just say The Flash works better as a comic book, in my opinion, like many comic book characters. And this period of The Flash with Mark Waid was particularly awesome. And we should be getting some more Mark Waid omnibuses, I believe. I believe there's at least one more coming. I mean, you never know. You never know. I haven't actually read this one yet. I got this very recently, and I was very happy to get it. It's fantastic. So now we've got the Speed Force from Mark Waid. But that wasn't the only high point for The Flash. There have been several, too many to mention. But I do want to mention Geoff Johns with his run on The Flash. His run on The Flash was remarkable. He took all of the things that were the strengths of The Flash, the character of Wally West, and all of the great rogues that have been running around all of these years in the Flash comic books. Here are some right there. And he produced just a remarkable comic book. It was just tons of fun. That's one thing about the Flash comic book. It tends to be more fun than a lot of characters comics do. The artwork was really cool. The stories were really cool. This was excellent stuff. The covers were really dynamite too in this period. So we've got actually a couple omnibuses from Geoff Johns. This is the first one. Then we've got the second one here, which was also awesome. Continues on with some of the fantastic artwork. Just great stuff. Really a lot of fun, this omnibus. This was a great time for the Flash. This is one of my favorite periods, actually. But he left the comic book for a while, Geoff Johns did. But he came back a few years later. And you know who else came back? Barry Allen. And you can find that story in here. This is the third Geoff Johns Flash omnibus. Of course, you know there was going to be a third one. And this one actually has some fantastic artwork in it. I mean, just brilliant, brilliant stuff. Yeah, it's cool stuff. So anyway, a couple of really cool things happen in this one. First of all, Barry Allen returns, which it really seemed like would never happen. I didn't think we'd ever get Barry Allen back. And to be perfectly honest, I was pretty happy with Wally West as the Flash, and I could have kept on with that for a while. But I do like Barry Allen too, especially now that I've read every single Silver Age adventure of Barry Allen. And like I said, that is my favorite DC Comics Silver Age comic book. But this is awesome. This also has Flashpoint, the big major event that happened. Let's see if I could find it. Things are not always easy to find in omnibuses, but let's see if I could find the beginning of Flashpoint. I probably won't. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, well this isn't the beginning, but this is part of Flashpoint, where basically Barry Allen screws up the whole DC universe, and we get Barry Allen exploring an alternate reality where we have Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas, is actually the Batman. It's all kinds of cool stuff going on in this comic. Flashpoint was actually a lot of fun, and it was actually a really good comic book. I really enjoyed it. It was cool. But the unfortunate thing is that after Flashpoint, DC Comics decided to do another reboot. Another reboot. The New 52. And that was a complete and total mess. It was a mess. Continuity was a mess. Wally West disappeared and became a completely different Wally West, which makes no sense, and why would you? Batman still had all of his Robins. He had all 12 Robins or whatever there was. You can't even keep Wally. You know what? I'm not even going to complain, because I have to say, the comic book that we got was pretty darn good. You know, it's like I said, The Flash has pretty good quality. It's pretty consistent, this comic book. And this comic book was pretty great. And the artwork in this was just fantastic. That's the first issue of the new Flash. We got Francis Manapul doing the artwork. Again, he had previously been on the Flash, but his Flash artwork is just beautiful. It's beautiful work. And this period of the Flash was an awful lot of fun. It had no right to be, because it was the New 52. But the New 52 did have some great comics. It just had, you know, terrible comics also, and no consistency in between the storylines. But that's okay. The Flash was good. And the Flash actually stayed good through Rebirth, which happened after this. In recent years, but you know what? The Flash, he's awesome. I don't care what Steve Donoghue says over on his channel. It's a great comic book. That's why I've got so much Flash hanging out here. Anyway, I've been talking for 20 minutes, like I usually do on Epic Comic Wednesdays. These always go long for some reason. Anyway, you can go listen to Steve Donoghue talk to you about how crappy The Flash is. But just remember, The Flash is one of the greatest comic books that has ever existed. His stories are amazing. His supervillains are the best. I love The Flash. I really do. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.